thank you all for joining us. Obviously, lovers of fashion and New York City, and students of architecture and history. I'm Barbaralee, Diamonstein-Spielvogel, the chair of the Historic Landmarks Preservation Center, a group of dedicated individuals who are committed to informing the public about the past, present, and future of historic preservation in our city. We're here today to celebrate the life and work of Condé Nast, a publishing innovator who created an empire that even after a century maintains its global reach. But that's a longer story. I warmest thanks to our collaborators in this endeavor, George Schwartz, Jay Deutsch, Ms. Sharkey, and the board and residents of 1040 Park, and to all of you for joining us here today. A reminder that this event is being videotaped and will be available to the public via an archive on YouTube and iTunes U, and at the David Rubenstein Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Duke University. Born in New York, Condé Nast was raised in St. Louis, Missouri. Because of the generosity of his wealthy aunt, Nast attended Georgetown University in Washington and then earned a law degree from Washington University in St. Louis. His college experience was his first step in his illustrious career. It was at Georgetown that he met Robert Collier, whose father owned one of the then most famous weekly magazines, Collier's. Robert introduced Nast to the publishing world, and by 1897, when Nast accepted a job at Collier's for $12 a week, he was considered quite lucky. But in 10 years, he had expanded readership from 19,000 to more than 500,000, and raised advertising revenues from a modest $5,000 to over $1 million annually. When he left Collier's, his annual salary was $50,000 a year, a staggering amount at the time. In 1902, Nast married into what has sometimes been referred to as high society. Although that marriage ended in 1925, he parlayed his evolving new life in this rarefied atmosphere in which he was now circulating into a new type of publication, one that would report on so-called society's elite, creating a world in its pages that the average American, even during the Roaring '20s, was meant to dream of emulating. After his divorce, Nast moved to 1040 Park, living in a vast 30-room penthouse. At the time these buildings were constructed, the least desirable location was considered the top floor of the building. So most often, those little rooms were divided into warrens for, quote, the maids. Well, because of his friendship really with Fred French, who was already living in a penthouse, one of the first and most renowned, somehow, somewhere, he got the idea to aggregate all these maids' rooms into this very large, sumptuous penthouse. And was informed enough, in terms of his aspirations, to hire the decorator, the society decorator, Elsie DeWolf, also known as Lady Mendel, who palled around with Siri Maughan, the wife of Somerset, Edith Wharton, and her design of houses. Lady Mendel wrote a book about the comfort of houses and would assure him that if he engaged her services, it would be in the most elegant, appropriate taste. So the housewarming party included society's creme de la creme, whatever that means, as well as numerous cultural luminaries. But this was only the first in a legendary series of entertainments held in his lavish ballroom and reported on breathlessly in the pages of his own magazines. Nast's use of his own life as grist for his publicity mill was, some might suggest, the forerunner of our current selfie culture. It was certainly successful and emulated. At least until 1929, when, like many others, he saw his empire collapse with a stock market crash. During the Depression, Nast struggled to regain his early prosperities. And despite his financial woes, he never abandoned his luxurious apartment and continued to entertain other notable New Yorkers until his death. Until the end, Nast remained a creative and determined publisher, even launching a new magazine, Glamour, in 1939. Now, there are numerous people who live here or who are informed about this building who will talk to you now. I'd like to start with the appropriately distinguished Stuart Saft, the president of the 1040 Corporation. He's a partner at Holland & Knight and leads the firm's New York real estate practice group. He's one of the most published and quoted attorneys on real estate and the chairman of the Council of New York Cooperatives and Condominiums, and writes a monthly column for Habitat and the Man Report. You may all rest assured how well represented you are. Thank you, Stuart Saft.
Well, this really isn't about me. This is about this magnificent building in which we all reside. First of all, I want to thank Jay, Jerry, and Margaret for leading the effort of getting this award. I also want to thank my wife, Stephanie, who 35 years ago said to me, "We're buying that apartment. The building is shabby, but it is a jewel that needs to be polished." And then several years later, she lifted up the carpeting in our elevator hallway, tore up the tile that was underneath it, and found this magnificent mosaic that was part of the original building. And from that, we wound up with our magnificent lobby, the new front doors, the work we've done on the exterior of the building that exposed the hair and tortoise, and now, of course, the replacement of the entryway. I also want to thank all of you shareholders for funding all of these things. and notwithstanding the fact that we all live here now, and in my case, for the last 35 years, we are all really holding on to this gem of a building for the next generation of owners. Just like the people who were here before us, and there are more coming after us, because this building will soon be celebrating its 100th anniversary. We will certainly celebrate the occasion, and I think this award is a wonderful tribute to the hundreds of people who've lived here for an extended period of time. So I thank you for the award. I thank all of you for coming here today and for participating and for all of your efforts in making this incredible building that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope that the 100th anniversary, these very activist and informed shareholders will remember that it is the 55th anniversary in 2020. Envision that. The passage of the New York City's Landmarks Law that really transformed all of the 5 boroughs, particularly in terms of historic districts and the self-governing that takes place from those historic districts. So I hope you come up with some new ideas to celebrate. We're going to put banners on buildings, we'll have a mobile Now I'm very pleased to introduce Carolyn Seabound, who was born in England and educated at Oxford. Her essays have appeared in House and Garden, Town and Country, the New York Times. She's an educator both here and abroad, in India and Sri Lanka. She's written 11 illustrated books on architecture, gardens, and design, as well as 2 novels. She is as well the author of 5 biographies, including The Man Who Was Vogue, The Life and Times, Condé Nast. And that book was written in 1982. We might have some updates over the last 36 years. It's a pleasure to welcome you, Carolyn.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I'm honored and delighted to be here because I wrote about Condé Nast and fell in love with him as I wrote about him. So I'm so delighted he's been honored. On Sunday, January the 18th, 1925, Condé Nast gave a housewarming party at his new apartment at 1040 Park Avenue. It was a large dinner dance, and among the guests were Richard Barthelmess, Herbert Byers-Swope, Ephraim Zimbalist, Alfred Lunt, Lynn Fontanne, Gilbert Seldes, Rube Goldberg, Edna St. Vincent Millay, Catherine Cornell, Fred and Adela Stair, Ina Clare, Yasha Heifetz, and Arthur Hammerstein, and George Dean Nathan. The apartment was a 30-room duplex penthouse decorated with an opulence that befitted the publisher of Vogue, Vanity Fair, House and Garden, and Jardin des Modes. He also was in France. These magazines, after all, spoke to the richest, most fashionable, most amusing people in America and Europe. And in the 1920s, they were very rich, very fashionable, and very, very amusing. The interior of the apartment was decorated by the current darling of the design world, Elsie de Wolfe. And she was the first female decorator in America when she did the rooms for the Colony Club, the famous women's club on Park Avenue. She covered American living rooms with chintz after seeing it in England, where they had been doing it for years. But her undying passion, if passion she knew, was for the French look. Every room in Condé Nast penthouse reflected this enthusiasm. Louis XV furniture, upholstered in pale green damask, Chinese screens, Régence needlepoint sofas, grisaille walls, Savonnerie rugs, ceilings covered in silver tea paper. This pièce de résistance of Mr. Wolfe's extravagant vision was the ballroom, which was decorated with an 18th century Chandler wallpaper, which actually I saw a little of when I was writing the book. I think it's all gone now. Pink moiré curtains edged with blue-green fringe, silver gauze undercurtains, and a parquet floor made in France and laid by specially imported French workmen. Wonderful copy, all in all, for a spread in Vogue, where naturally photographs of the apartment ultimately appeared. And that, as far as Condé Nast was concerned, was the point. His parties were fast and fabulous, but they were business. Into this sumptuous stage set, Nast lured the fashionable people who briefly illuminated their age, for they were the stuff of his magazines. From the beginning of 1925, when he moved into the apartment, until a few months before he died, he threw at least 2 parties a month, enormous ones like his housewarming, cocktail parties, buffets, after-theatre suppers, intimate sit-down dinners, many of which later appeared in the gossip columns. The parties were, in a sense, tableaux vivants. The magazines come to life with Nast, the omniscient, omnipresent editor. The parties were what was remembered most. The parties of Condé Nast, F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote, rivaled in their way the fabled balls of the 90s. Going up in the private elevator to the penthouse at 1040 Park, jammed together with Astors, Vanderbilts, and other personages of consequence. Groucho Marx was overheard to remark to his brother Harpo, This is a classy joint. It was indeed. For a brief moment, while parties such as Elsa Maxwell's became legends, Condé Nast's exquisitely orchestrated evenings outdid them all. Finally, of course, it made it to the movies. In the early 30s, an MGM movie was entitled Wife versus Secretary, in which a fashionable magazine publisher's loving wife, Myrna Loy, is threatened by his zealous secretary, Jean Harlow, in an early, modest appearance, while the publisher attempts to take over a series of mass-market publications owned by his Hearst rival. The film openly admits its debt to Condé Nast by showing the fictional publisher walking in and out of his apartment at 1040 Park. Which leads me to my last point. When I was writing this book, people would ask me who I was writing about, and I would say Condé Nast. And they would say, but we thought it was a building. Now, at last, indeed, Condé Nast, here is a building. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those very informative, graceful comments. I can't help thinking that you have one of the great chroniclers as a resident of this building, well known for her essays, her columns, and her wit. I suggest you impose on Enid Nemi to write some history of the 100th birthday of this building. Forgive me, Enid, but it would be wonderful to see you. Internationally recognized American conductor Gerard Schwartz serves as music director of the All-Star Orchestra, featured in television programs, recognized with 6 Emmy Awards and an ASCAP Award. Schwartz also serves as music director of the Eastern Music Festival in North Carolina and the Mozart Orchestra of New York. He is conductor laureate of the Seattle Symphony. We had a long and triumphant run, and even more significantly, long-term conductor emeritus of the Mostly Mozart Festival. His book, Behind the Baton, was released most appropriately by Amadeus Press in March 2017. It's a pleasure to welcome Gerard Schwartz.
There's a reason for this, which I'll tell you in a second. So everyone recognizes that. What you probably don't know is that that arrangement was done by Jascha Heifetz, probably the greatest violinist of the 20th century, who was often in this building, as he was often was a guest of Condé Nast. And the music, of course, is written by George Gershwin, and he was often in this building as a guest until he died. And one of the great composers, American composers of the 20th century. In a way, from the position of an artist, yes, there were socialites, yes, there were politicians, yes, there were great business people and extraordinary financiers, but there were a huge number of artists, composers, people like Richard Rogers, Oscar Hammerstein, Arthur Hammerstein, who spent many an evening here at these lavish parties, but also as a congregating place for the arts, because there was a chance for these musicians and these composers to work together in a social setting. Another violinist, Efrem Zimbalist, you may not know, but another great 20th century violinist was here often, and often when Heifetz was here. We are very proud of our building, and we're a very diverse building. Yes, we have great business people, great financial people. We have a member of the clergy, we have great lawyers, doctors, But we also have artistic people in our building. And when my wife and I lived on the west side, we walk down the street and see all of our friends. And we moved to the east side, our west side friends said, oh, now you're going to where all the philanthropists are, you're meeting all the artists. Well, in our building we have a lot of artists, and of course, the person responsible for this, besides Barbaralee, who we adore, and has done so much for the arts as the chair of New York State Council on the Arts. When you read her biography, you see an activist in our great city, for the city, but also for the arts, because we are known for the arts in New York. This is, yes, it's a financial capital, medical, all of those things, but it is the artistic capital of the country and one of the most important capitals of the world. Jay and Rose Deutsch, who are with us today, Jay was really, as a member of our board, responsible for championing this effort. And he's from the artistic community, as is Rose. For 25 years, they ran the Leica Gallery downtown, had many shows with great photographers, and now have one of the great collections of photographs in their quite lavish apartment, maybe not 30 rooms, but quite wonderful. And I think Jay and Rose have this apartment just so they can hang all the great photographs that they have. We also have in our building one of the great owners of a record company that does more for hip-hop music, which I don't know what that is, but anyone else, we have a great photographer in our building. So we and of course many people care deeply about the arts. And so it's with that we celebrate not only Condé Nast for his support, but I also want to mention one other person who's lived in our building for more than 50 years, who many people have. And she's another member of our artistic community. That's Margot Melniker, who's sitting right over here. And Margot was the personal assistant to one of the great 20th century American conductors, Thomas Shippers. And if you don't know who he is, he was the one that conducted the opening of Metropolitan Opera House, Sam Barber's Anthony Cleopatra. And Sam Barber was in this building, as a matter of fact, as well, as was Copland, as was so many of the great American composers of the second quarter of the 20th century. So I'm very, Jody and my wife and I are so thrilled to live here. We grew up in New York, and then we emigrated to Seattle for 28 years, and then we saw the light and came home. And luckily we were able to come home to 1040. And so we're very grateful to all the work that Stuart does for our building, all the board members, all of the shareholders, and especially to you, Barbaralee, for not only what you've done for us in honoring Condé Nast, but also what you continue to do for all of us in New York and for the arts in New York.
Very generous. Thank you. Thank you. That musical interlude is the applause that refreshes. Thank you. Andrew Alpern's fascination with Manhattan apartment buildings began as a young boy and developed into a 30-year career as an architect. After a midlife law degree, he has for the past 25 years practiced law as general counsel to an investment firm and remains an architectural historian and writer, and provides testimony and reports to various preservation issues, including the Landmarks Preservation Commission. It's a pleasure to introduce him.
This corner of Park Avenue and 86th Street has been well served by public transportation, a very important factor in its development. By 1834, there were horse-drawn coaches running along iron rails from Prince Street to 86th Street, where there was a small rural village called Yorkville, with about 500 people in it. That little enclave expanded with the amenity of regular rapid transportation south to the city. Service improved, and starting in 1872, the tracks were lowered into an open tunnel. Then in 1878, the 3rd Avenue elevated train opened with a station at 84th Street. Competition came 2 years later with the 2nd Avenue elevated. What had been a little suburb became part of the city, and a row of 2-story wood frame houses with raised front porches was erected where 1040 now sits, along with a modest 3-story wood apartment house over a store in the corner. Those early buildings remained until they were taken down to provide the site for 1040. Luxury apartment houses often were built with extra maids' rooms on the roof, sometimes with an apartment for the superintendent, and also with laundry rooms convenient to open air dry racks. Along with elevator equipment rooms and an elevated water tank, these were the only elements to be found atop an apartment house for the first 2 decades of the 20th century. Nice people simply didn't dream ever of living on a roof. If you wanted sun and air, you would go to the park or to your house in the country. But then pioneer real estate developer Fred F. French thought, why not eliminate the commute and bring the country to the city and then put it on top of an apartment house? So he did exactly that with a project he constructed at 1140 Fifth Avenue. And he moved into that rooftop bungalow with his own family. He liked this sort of countrified city living, but needed more space as his young sons grew more active. So for his apartment house at 1010 Fifth Avenue, he constructed a much larger penthouse apartment with a large lawn and trees bedded in 3 feet of well-drained soil on top of the roof. Frederick Fillmore French laid the foundation up in the air for penthouse living. Given their comparable social and economic levels, it is entirely possible that Condé Nast got his idea for penthouse entertainment spaces from visiting the penthouse of Fred F. French. If so, it was only conceptual, as what French had was a family apartment with expansive outdoor space. Nast's family was grown and off in homes of their own, and his intent was to provide a canvas on which to create grand entertainments. So these men both had penthouses, but each was of an entirely different character. The French penthouse was described only once in the internal newsletter of the French Development Company, while the Nast penthouse received publicity whenever a particularly memorable entertainment was mounted there. Of course, that public notice was an important part of the reason for the penthouse in the first place. That publicity helped to sell the magazines that Nast published. But the side effect was that New Yorkers finally realized that their apartment house roofs could serve as lavish living rooms instead of merely as service spaces. Suddenly, no more extra maids' rooms were built on that now valuable real estate in the air. Instead, sprawling residences appeared, which could be laid out much more imaginatively, as there was almost nothing above the rooftop apartment that had to be accommodated. Fred French and Condé Nast's effect on this apartment market in New York also had a strong impact on the motion picture industry. Scores of films have used penthouse apartments with glorious skyline views to represent the most sophisticated and luxurious living styles for an audience that was unlikely to experience it in person. So it is not unreasonable to say that the celluloid image of Mae West reclining on a divan in front of glass doors leading to a penthouse terrace had its origins in the 1834 terminal of a primitive form of mass transit right here at 86th Street. And it probably couldn't have happened anywhere other than in New York City. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alphen. You know what lucky shareholders you are. Not only do you seem to really like each other and communicate with each other, but you have a council person who is sufficiently interested in this building to do something that is quite unusual. Not only to come to your ceremony, but to stay for the entire thing. And to initiate a proclamation honoring this building and in turn each and all of you. I think it's an outstanding civic service you've done. I hope your constituents will remember that at the right time. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Council Member Keith Powers, who represents District 4, that covers the east side of Manhattan and Midtown, and he serves as chair of the Council's Criminal Justice Committee. During his tenure, he's introduced legislation protecting affordable housing, advocating for small business owners, and improving workers' benefits. His first bill, signed into law this year, expanded sexual harassment protections under New York City's human rights law to all employees in New York City. We're honored to have you with us today, and will you please present the proclamation to 1040 Park, and who will accept it? Mr. Sapp, and after that, we will read the medallion to you. And I hope Mr. Deutsch, who has labored so mightily on this, will come forward and read the text. Deborah has a copy for you. And now, Councilman Powers.
Showing up matters, but staying matters. One thing I've learned. Thank you, and congratulations. Thank you for letting me be part of this, and I wouldn't miss it because I love these celebrations of New York City and the people who contributed so much to New York City and the places that really have an important part in this city's social and cultural fabric. So it was, I'm happy to be here, I'm happy to stay, but I'm really honored to be able to present this. So one of the things we do in the city to honor the places and the people and those that have contributed to the city is we do a proclamation that comes from the City Council, myself and the Speaker of the City Council. That is actually today when we go down into the stated meeting as part of the historical record here from New York City, but of course in a way that you can also know that the city appreciates and honors you. So I have one here that I'm going to present to you today. That's in honor of Condé Nast in the building here, but Stuart, you're getting it today. Oh, there they are. So I could read the whole thing, but I'll just do the highlights of it. So it says, whereas 1040 Park Avenue is a participant in the Historic Landmarks Preservation Center's Cultural Medallion Program, which heightens public awareness of the cultural and social history of New York City, and with its distinct, well-preserved facade, which combines Georgian and early Art Deco elements, 1040 Park Avenue possesses special character and deserves to be recognized for its originality. The stone-based arch entrance and the distinctive frontage at the third floor, depicting alternating hares and tortoises display a historic and architectural style uncommon in New York City. This residential edifice was once home to Condé Nast, the publisher of Vogue magazine, who created a stunning penthouse where only servants' rooms had originally been planned. His penthouse was the venue for many lavish parties, whose famous guests included musicians George Gershwin, and there's a lot of names on here, so I'm supposed to do that, and many others. And now, therefore, be it known that Keith Powers, City Councilor of the 4th District, honors the 1040 Park Avenue. So thank you, congratulations, and you have to hang this somewhere nice.
Medallion program started in 1995. It's about to celebrate its 20th anniversary. It was really based on the British Blue Marker program, where it will say, Disraeli lived here, Handel played there, we do the unexpurgated version. There is as much text possible to inform residents, passers-by, tourists about why this is significant. Because we know buildings are important, but what goes on under their roofs is even more important. And there are 117 in place, and we, in honor of the 55th upcoming anniversary, we have put together a booklet called Notable New Yorkers. But it also gives the genesis and evolution. It might be of particular interest to your counseling, but everyone, how programs start and how they evolve. I think you will be pleasantly surprised to see what citizen activism, if they endure, can accomplish. So, if you know any individual who's made a significant contribution and have verifiable information, no George Washington stuff here, regarding where they resided in a building that still exists, please let us know. If you'd like to learn more about our programs, please see HLPC, culturalmedallions.org. And now I'm going to ask Mr. Deutsch to read the text.
Condé Nast, March 26, 1873 to September 19, 1942, 1040 Park Avenue, Manhattan. Condé Nast, a graduate of Georgetown University, BA 1894, MA 1895, and Washington University Law School 1897, was born in New York City and raised in St. Louis. After law school, he entered the publishing world. His dramatic success in this field was based on his invention of new layout and printing formats, coupled with innovative marketing techniques that appealed to specific income levels and identified common interests among readers. He became the publisher of the most successful magazines for affluent, sophisticated readers, Vogue, Vanity Fair, and House and Garden. When in 1925, he moved to this Delano and Aldrich building, his 30-room duplex penthouse, decorated by Elsie DeWolf, became the backdrop for an ongoing series of extravagant celebrity-attended gatherings that were all well recorded in his own periodicals. The 1929 stock market crash decimated his business empire. Nevertheless, he continued with vastly diminished resources until his death in 1942. I join the other members, the president of the corporation and the other members of the board, in thanking you for coming here. And we're very, very happy that that through the efforts of Ms. Diamonstein-Spielvogel, this has become what started as a hope and promise that ends in a reality. Thank you.
This very lively, informative program. Thanks to each and all of you for coming. And most of all, thanks to you, the audience, the participants, those who maintain the life of this building. We're all very appreciative. Thank you.